Okay, in this video we're going to talk about typos found in Bibles. And I have a picture here of the new RSV Quentel, and people have been pointing out some typos found in this Bible. That's what got me started on this topic. So I want you to look at this photo and tell me if you can spot the typo, the error in this photo. This was on Facebook in one of the groups that I'm in, and unfortunately I could not find the post. I think it was in one of the groups, and I couldn't find the post, but I did have this photo saved. And this is not the only typo in the RSV Quentel. People have pointed out other ones. R. Grant Jones, I think, in his video pointed out a couple of typos in the apocryphal section of this Bible. If you have this Bible with the Apocrypha, they also do have this Bible without the Apocrypha. But this looks like it's in the Old Testament, and I've given you time to spot the typo. So I'm going to show it to you now. It's right here, if you didn't find it yet. It's this word that's supposed to say company, but it says come a penny. Speaking of come a penny, the RSV Quentel is actually in good come a penny when it comes to having a typo in it, or having typos in it. When you think of the most iconic English translation of the Bible, what do you think of? That, of course, is the King James Version. And there is actually a King James Bible that is notorious for a typographical error in it. And it's right here. You see the picture here. If you look closely at this picture, you may be able to tell the error. In the Ten Commandments, many times you'll see thou shalt not, but on this particular commandment, the printer did not put in the word not, which was a major blunder, because this commandment now says thou shalt commit adultery. Definitely not what was intended by the author, and I think it just shows you that the RSV having errors is not anything new. This Bible was actually printed, I think, in 1631. The information here is from the Museum of the Bible, and it says about this Bible that this edition of the King James Bible contains one of the most notorious typographical errors in Bible printing history. One of the 10 commandments omits the essential command not, making Exodus 20:14 read thou shalt commit adultery instead of thou shalt not. The printer, Robert Barker, was said to have been fined £300 for the error, at the time a sizable amount. Most copies of the edition were either corrected or destroyed, as 1,000 copies of this Bible were ordered suppressed. So from what I can tell, it is on display at the Museum of the Bible in Washington. Now, it might be easy to say, well, the reason that you had errors in the Bible, like the King James, is because, they were working with the equipment that they had back then. They didn't have the modern technology and computers that we have, so it's unacceptable today for us to have errors. But I did notice, and I wish I could find that original post that I showed that picture from, that someone from Evangelical Bible, Beth, was saying that they check very thoroughly, and I think they use computer equipment and everything to scan and check and make sure that, to the best of their ability, there are no typographical errors in what they produce. However, I think what all of this shows is that even with modern technology, you are still dealing with the potential for human error. There's just no way around it. Even computers don't always do everything that we want them to do in the way that we want them to do them. So it just comes down to the fact that, humans are imperfect, and you're going to see errors at times. And I did want to make some comments about errors in Bibles, because I know, sometimes it's frustrating and we get worked up about things like this, especially if we spend a lot of money on a Bible. But before I share some thoughts, I just want to ask all of you, are there any typographical errors that you've spotted in a book that you have or a Bible that you have that you would like to leave in the comment section. I think that would be really interesting to see what are some different errors that you've noticed. And maybe there are some errors in books or Bibles that are even a little bit humorous when you see what they say. I don't think anything, though, is going to top what happened in 1631 with the printing error in the Ten Commandments saying, "Thou shalt commit adultery." I mean, that's about as bad as it gets. But really just some thoughts that I wanted to share on this is, first of all, this is a reminder that humans are not perfect. The reason that we have errors in books is because humans are not perfect. And it's just a good reminder. Sometimes we have to take a step back and remember that even when people try their very best, and I do really believe that a lot of publishers are trying their very best, they're still human. And there are errors that go into printed copies of books and Bibles. And the second thing along with that is that I would say books and Bibles often have printing errors, typographical errors. If you look very closely, you will at times spot different errors. And again, that's why I wanted to ask, what are some errors that you've found in different books and Bibles that you've read? I think what you'll find is that errors are actually pretty common, but I will add this, that I think you will tend to notice errors more when you're scrutinizing more, and if you've paid more money for something, you're probably going to be zeroed in that much more on things and notice errors even more. That is a possibility, that the more you've spent on a book or a product, the more that you're going to scrutinize it and notice things that are not perfect about it. But one other thing that I thought would be good food for thought to remember with all of this is that a lot of Bibles that we have, because we might look at other Bibles and say, I haven't noticed errors in those other translations. A lot of translations have been in circulation for a long time and have been widely used and widely circulated, and a lot of people have looked at them. And so I think if a translation is getting used all the time, I have a feeling that they tend to work out the kinks. And if there are typographical errors, people will spot them. And one very important thing to do is to notify the publisher if you do see any errors. So if you're noticing errors, for example, in the RSV Quentel, or really any other Bible from any other publisher, let the publisher know, and that helps them to work out the kinks. And I think one of the reasons that the RSV does have typographical errors is because it's not in wide print. It's not widely in print right now, and so I think that might be a reason it might have a tendency to have more errors. Bibles, for example, like the New King James, maybe earlier on when it was first being printed, did have some errors, but those errors have been noted and the printings have been corrected. And so now typically when you see a New King James Bible, you won't see an error, although I still think it could happen in any Bible. But Bibles that are in wide circulation, many of our translations are. I think a lot of the errors have already been noted and corrected in a lot of those publications. So that's really all I wanted to say about this, just to kind of help people maybe have a little bit more ease of mind when it comes to finding typos in books and Bibles. I actually self-published a book several years ago, and I paid quite a bit of money to have it proofread. And even so, there were still typographical errors that were found in the book. It still does happen. So the RSV is, as I said, in good company with not only the King James Bible, but with many other books and Bibles in having typographical errors. I hope that you found this subject at least somewhat interesting, and I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section below. But thank you so much for taking some time to look at this topic with me from a Frisch perspective.